I was a little hesitant to make this video simply because I don't know what people will think, but I felt like recording it, talking about it, get off my chest is probably one of the best ways to go about it. But I'm gonna talk about whole playtime basically. Like, I have no words to describe how incredible this series is as a whole. Like, the feeling of the game is just sad, overwhelming, happy, and also terrifying. And I think it's simply because what the devs done to this game is absolutely remarkable. The high tension in the game is just absolutely incredible. I mean, you feel like you're in the game with the amount of overwhelming stuff that happens within the game. It feels like you're in it, and not many games can achieve that. I mean, the main character is just absolutely unbelievable as a character. I mean, you don't really see him, and you only see his hands, but it shows so much about him. I mean, he went back to the factory to find what's supposed to be the missing survivors, but then he found out that they are all dead. They're being killed after the Hour of Joy clip that Poppy showed us. And within chapter 4, you can see that his hands are absolutely shaking, like he is terrified. I mean, the guy is traumatized and he is scared for his life. He just wants to get out. He didn't want any of this. He just wanted to find the workers, but they're all dead. And he's seen it and he is traumatized. He is scared and he is terrified for his life. That's what I love about the character so much. He doesn't show like he is scared. He doesn't show emotion, but you can see that he's terrified because his hands are shaking within probably Playtime Chapter 4. And that shows so much about him. And it is so depressing for him because he has lost so much trust within Poppy and so many other characters as well. I mean, you can only trust Dog Day and Kissy Missy in Poppy Playtime. Dog Day just told you what happened. Kissy Missy is trying to protect you. They want freedom. But Poppy is trying to trap you even further within the factory. She wants you to go even deeper, find more secrets. I feel like she doesn't want you to stop the prototype. She wants revenge on what you did. That's why I feel like the main character is basically the Doomslayer of Poppy Playtime. I mean, he's been through Huggy Wuggy, Mummy Longlegs, Pugapilla, Escapes Dog Day, Catnap, Mr. Light, Harley, Yana B, Pianosaurus, and the Smiley Critters and Nightmare Critters. I mean, I feel so awfully bad for the character. The guy just wanted to find the workers and just get out, but he found them dead and he's going deeper and deeper into the factory. And he's lost all trust within everyone, apart from, Kissy Missy and Dog Day. And he still has to listen to Poppy no matter what to survive. It's just so unfair. He's basically a slave towards Poppy. And all Poppy is doing is basically tormenting him, pushing him further and further through this hellish factory. I mean, the first game is just basically the start of the game. Like, you go into the factory, etc. You're trying to find out what's going on. The second game is just basically adding lore towards the game. The third game is definitely the most scariest game and adding even more high attention towards the game. And the fourth game is just basically adding emotion towards the game. I mean, I don't know much about the fourth game. I know very little about it. But I can definitely tell you that it's definitely step up a notch from the third game. I mean, I will always say that the third game is definitely the best game, but the fourth game just adds so much emotion, and seeing bodies in the game just adds so much disturbance towards the game. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I'm mainly saying that it's like unspeakable. It's shocking. And I feel like the main reason why the game is extremely overwhelming for me is because during this scene where you're in Home Sweet Home, I feel like that really just broke me as a person. And it's so weird because I've never experienced that in any other game before. I know I was, you know, being happy and terrified, but in hindsight, I was absolutely just broken. I mean, Home Sweet Home was just basically an orphanage for kids, but realistically, it's just basically a waiting testing ground for kids. I mean, these kids basically wanted, a family, but they're just being waited to be tested on so they can turn into these ravenous toys going around killing everyone. And now, as toys, they can't get that freedom no more, but they're terrified of stopping the prototype or even Harley because they're terrified. And it's just, I have no words to describe it. It's just awful. I mean, I know it's a game and all, but it feels like it's real in some way. I mean, during the Hour of Joy clip, if you see my video, you saw me like I was basically emotionally upset. I was literally crying. That's how sad it was. And I've seen other YouTuber reactions towards it as well. I mean, their emotions were just shock, upset, and just speechless. And the game has really truly broke me as a person, and I, I see games completely different from it now. I've played hundreds and a hundred of games in my life, and not one of them made me emotionally attached to a bunch of, characters, like the Smiling Critters, for example. I remember listening to Sleep Well by CG5, like the actual video clip, and I couldn't help but I got really upset during that video, and it was weird. I mean, I probably listened to over 1,000 different songs in my life, and not one of them made me emotional like Sleep Well. And the songs that YouTubers made, like DA Games with Slaves to the Factory Line and Return to Motherland, Nate Wants to Battle with Young Forever, Rocket Music with the Dog Days song, and CG5 with Mummy's Here, Poison Blooms, and of course, Sleep Well. And those songs are just absolutely incredible. And DA Games' song Slave to Factory Line is my personal favorite song of all time. Not because the instrumentals are just absolutely amazing, but it's telling the truth about proper playtime within a song. It's hiding the truth of what the toys actually are. And the toys wanted freedom as well. And of course, it's very similar to Young Forever by Nate Wants a Battle. I mean, the toys are basically young forever. They can't grow anymore, they can't age anymore because those kids were experimented on. And the lore as well, it just dives in so much. It's just unbelievably deep. The lore is really confusing and we really don't know much. That's why we have to really guess. And my theory videos do kind of guess. And I was right partly, but at the same time, I was massively wrong. But then again, it's just a theory. We don't have evidence that it's true or not, but we can make assumptions and guess, really. Of course, I've studied a handful of laws in my time, like the Call of Duty zombie storyline with, the Dark Ether, the Chaos storyline, the Ether storyline, and the characters. The FNAF storyline as well. I mean, we kind of nailed that down very well. But Poppy Playtime's lore is just speechless and confusing at its finest. We don't know very much, but the game tells us so much, and we just don't know. There's so many secrets to discover still. And of course, the characters as well are just absolutely amazing. If you like the characters because they're scary, or you like the Smiling Critters because they're very adorable and cute, the characters are just brilliant and they work so well within the game. I mean, the game is about orphans being experimented on, turning into toys, going ravenous and killing every single human in sight, innocent or not, and then being scared because they want freedom and they can't get that freedom no more because they're toys. They're not humans anymore. I mean, one of the characters I do feel really bad for is Dog Day. I mean, the guy wants freedom. He didn't want any of it, and then within the end, his legs are torn up, and he is under control of the prototype now. Same thing with Kissy Misky as well. I mean, she wants freedom too, but within chapter 4, you saw her just absolutely destroyed. And you can't help but feel bad for the characters as well. They want freedom, but they can't receive that freedom because they're under control or they're scared to go against anyone. The game also based around religion as well. I mean, with the prototype basically being a god towards all toys, and of course, humans being, of course, the devil, but sometimes in the end, the devil helps out more than the god. But realistically, the prototype is the devil, and we are, of course, the angel and the god to save the toys. But they can't see that because they're brainwashed and under controlled. That's why I feel like the lore in the game is like basically a mixed message. In some ways, you can back up so much stuff with a lot of other things, and it's very, true and similar. I mean, we can back up the prototype being a god because we see Cat praying towards the prototype. Same thing with Barbara Chops being basically an outcast because she's the black sheep. Like, you can back up the evidence with real life stuff because it all makes sense. That's why the storyline is just very confusing and it just goes into different areas. Some things may be true, some things may be fake, but you can back that up no matter what, even though it is fake or not. It's still heading into the right direction. But this horror game, it's weird because it's a horror game, it's scary, but it mainly based around the lore and emotions than actual horror. I mean, we can all agree that Poppy Playtime Chapter 3 is the most scariest game out there, but it also brought emotion towards us as well. I mean, I've already mentioned this, but the hour of joy and the YouTubers' reaction towards it, they were complete shocked and speechless. But for me, it was more like traumatized because it felt like I was there, but I wasn't. That's what was weird about it. The thing is, that game can make you feel like you're part of it, like you're literally inside of the game, and not many games can achieve that, like I said already, but it's incredible how the game can actually basically do that, mixing your emotions with fear and distorted. And not many games can do that, mix with your emotions, but this game can, and it did really well. And of course, the level of details in the game is just unbelievable. I mean, look at chapter 3, for example. Look at my screen right now. It feels like I'm playing in a VHS tape, and it's weird, but it feels like that. And little details like that can make a game go a long way. I mean, for example, the VHS tape graphic type style, I don't know if I can see it or if it's just me, but it makes the game feel more scary and more deep, and you feel like there's something else, but there isn't. Every dark corner, you feel like something's watching you, or when you feel like something's behind you, you turn around, but nothing's there. And stuff like that really makes the game be more special and way more incredible. Stuff like that can like mix with your emotion, mix with fear, but also excitement at the same time, makes the game way more enjoyable because you can just dive in it instantly. With the game, you're always going to be on your toes no matter what. You feel like something's going to happen, but in the end, it doesn't. But the next second, something does happen when you least expect it. That high tension really builds up so much. I've seen quite a lot of horror games in my time, and not many games can build that much tension, unlike Poppy Playtime. That's why I feel like this game is truly remarkable on that tension build up. The game as well is very safe as well with collaborations. I mean, I feel like the only collaboration they have done is with G-Fuel, and that's literally it. Unlike Final Fantasy 30s, I mean, they recently had a collaboration with Dead by Daylight during the 10-year anniversary, and I can definitely see by the second movie, it'll probably even come to Fortnite. And that's why most indie games gotta protect their game, because collaboration like that can ruin their fan base and the game itself. Poppy Playtime with G Fuel is basically nothing really. I mean, it's just basically adding a new flavor, a new cup thingy or whatever it is, and that is okay because it's not, changing their game whatsoever. Unlike Final Fantasy 30s, I can see their game slowly being destroyed with each collaboration, and of course with different owners, with like, for example, the owner who made Into the Pit, and of course with Steel Wolf, I can definitely see that their game can be slowly being decayed and destroyed over time, but very slowly. Unlike Poppy Playtime, I can just definitely see it being a safe game with very little collaborations, simply because not many companies would want to have a collaboration with Poppy Playtime, even though it's such a big horror game. Of course, they probably declined a lot of different offers, but I can just definitely see that Poppy Playtime is definitely one of the most safest indie games out there that won't be destroyed simply because of some company want more money. Mob games care about their fans and their fan base, and they know they don't want that collaborations. That's why I feel like the game is completely safe without collaborations. Poppy Playtime is a substantial game in my life, and I can't change that because it broke me as a character, and I see things completely different. And I get overwhelmed very easily with different characters now within Poppy Playtime, or even in different games as well, simply because how easily the game can break you as a person, and with me, it's truly affected me. I don't really blame them for it. I can't really complain about it. I know what I was getting into if I, became a fan of Poppy Playtime, but I didn't know it would, break me as a character this much. I mean, I'm fully aware it's just a game, but it really can make a big difference towards you. I mean, now the game is just such a big part of my life. I own merch, I've done fan art, I made a catnap beanie, I own plushies, and because of all of that, the game has really changed me as a person, and I simply can't forget about the game whatsoever. The game is just remarkable and incredible how much the game can truly do that to you. I mean, like, the characters are just truly amazing. If that's the smiling critters, the nightmare critters, the evil characters, the prototype, all that has lore, and the lore is so deep and crazy, and I love all the characters because of it. And I felt like I love the game mainly the most because of the smiling critters and the nightmare critters, because they're just absolutely adorable, and I love them because of it. But man, the game really is incredible with all the characters, the storyline, the high tension, the overwhelming stuff within the game, like the Hour of Joy clip. It's incredible. I mean, I think about Poppy Playtime every single day because this game is just out of this world, and I love it so much because of it. I can't wait for Chapter 4 to come onto Xbox. I can definitely tell that I will get very emotional because of it, and a lot of stuff will happen because of it. But at the same time, I love the game because of it. The tension, the overwhelming stuff, the emotions, it gets you very easily, and surprisingly, I love the game because of it. I just don't know how they can just make the game so incredible like that, with the storyline and like the Hour of Joy. I just don't know how they can do it. They just do. And it's remarkable. It's incredible. But because we see dead bodies in chapter 4, I feel like we can see dead children bodies in chapter 5 next, with the dead orphans being experimented on. I can see that happening. And if we do, I feel like that game would just be out of order because of how scary and how intense that could possibly be with the game. No horror game has done that yet, but I felt like Poppy Playtime Chapter 5 might be the first to do it. I don't think they will do it, but at the same time, I felt like they might. And if they do, I have no words to describe the game. It'll just be way more emotional, way more deep, way more dark, like it already is. I will have no words about it. I don't think they will do it because it'd just be very dangerous and a very uncomfortable position they will be in because of it. I think for another reason why I think this game is a bit overwhelming for me as well is that like this game doesn't really have a heaven or a safe heaven at that point as well. There is nothing basically. Essentially, there is no safe heaven. I mean, chapter 4 is literally called Safe Heaven, but there isn't. Essentially, all the toys have done bad before. Even Kissy Missy during the Hour of Joy, but it's not their fault in the way. They killed the workers because they wanted revenge, but at the same time, they killed the innocent as well. And I feel like that safe heaven is only for the smiling critters and maybe Kissy Missy and Huggy Wuggy. They deserve peace, and I can say the same thing about Catnap as well, but he did kill innocent during the Hour of Joy. I don't know if Kissy Missy did, maybe, but I feel like the safe heaven does not exist. Not even for us. The thing is that the toys know what we did wrong. We were scientists there once before the Hour of Joy, and it's really sad. It really is. And I think the thing that really makes this really messed up is that I don't feel like the toys will get the freedom they deserve, or even the children that died during the Hour of Joy. I feel like they will get the freedom they wanted. I feel like they'll be trapped in that factory for all eternity, and us, the player, can't do anything. Another thing that I want to say as well is that I'm sick and tired of people saying that Poppy Playtime copy FNAF of the lore with like the phone and like the prototype being very similar to the Mimic. No, they didn't. Yes, I would admit the lore with Poppy Playtime is slightly similar to FNAF, but I could say the same thing about Bendy the Ink Machine as well. I will always defend Poppy Playtime's lore because it's just more interesting, unlike Five Nights at Freddy's, which recently I feel like it's just really messy and evolves around theory base. Yes, I would admit majority of the horror games are basically theory based, but with FNAF, the creators don't even know the full lore themselves because most of it is made up by the fans. Unlike Poppy Playtime, the creators actually know the lore very well, and we know, kind of little because we need to still find that lore. And I feel like we know quite a lot about Poppy Playtime because the lore is very simple, and even though there is so much to discover, it's kind of easy to do that. Unlike FNAF, it just jumped forward to the 80s to like 2025 or something, or 2035 or something like that. It's just really confusing, and people are struggling with that. Unlike Poppy Playtime, because we've been in the factory for 2 days and we keep discovering brand new stuff that's from the 80s and 90s, and we're not jumping through like 50 years later or something like that. And I feel like the main character of FNAF is just very boring. I mean, it's the same. I mean, it's Purple Guy, then Spring Bonnie, then Springtrap, then Scrap Trap, then Glitch Trap, then Burnt Trap. It's the same person, but he keeps changing over and over and over again, and it gets repetitive and boring. And I wouldn't really count the animatronics as villains because majority of the time it's either AI or kids' souls trapped in suits. And of course, with Poppy Playtime, we have a brand new villain every single time, which is completely different, like Huggy Wuggy, Mummy Longlegs, Catnap, and of course Harley. But of course, we know Catnap is not a villain because he's just brainwashed by the prototype because he thinks that the prototype is a god. and he has to serve that god because he gave him life and a purpose again. I mean, I can easily say that the main villain is the prototype, but realistically, it could also be Poppy as well, because we always got to follow Poppy no matter what, always listen to her, always do whatever she says, and of course, we just like a slave to her, and we're losing that trust because of it. And that's why I feel like, probably Playtime character and lore is way better than FNAF, because FNAF at the moment is just really messy and the characters for FNAF is just repetitive. It's the same characters over and over again. It's a different Freddy, it's a different Chica, it's a different Bonnie, it's a different Foxy. It's the same thing over and over again. Of course, like I said, the same thing about the Smiling Critters and Nightmare Critters, but they're both completely different and completely original. I mean, the Nightmare Critters with the Smiling Critters, they're just completely different animals. But with FNAF, they're just like, okay, then we'll make them into toys, then we'll make them into withers, then we'll make them into nightmares. It's the same character, but they just have a different design. I have no hate with Final Fantasy Freddy's. I think Final Fantasy Freddy's is a beautiful game, and I used to be a big fan of it. And over the time, I just seen that public playtime is slightly better with the characters are more unique and more better, and it actually makes sense with the lore. Unlike Final Fantasy Freddy's, it's just so messy and confusing. The games as well are just absolutely incredible. Of course, for the first game, it's the first game, of course. You're trying to get used to the characters, you're trying to get used to what the game's all about, you're trying to understand what you have to do. And for 30 minutes, it's a pretty good solid game, I will admit. I mean, if you don't know already, I keep saying this throughout my channel quite often, but it's one of my favorite videos I've ever posted on my channel simply because the editing was really fun and I just enjoyed the game so much. Chapter 2 is a pretty good game. Even though it's my least favorite, I did really enjoy it a lot. I will admit, this chapter had probably one of the best puzzle type games we had in the Poppy Playtime series so far, simply because you had, like 3 different mini games to play, and they were really fun to play. I think for Chapter 2, it was more about adding lore into the game because people still were a little bit confused about what was Poppy Playtime all about. So adding that more lore into the game really helped a lot of the fans, and I think it grew more in popularity. And the main reason why I did not like Poppy Playtime Chapter 2 was simply because Molly Longleg's voice was just really sexual. And by the way, no disrespect to Elsie Lovelock, she is an absolute incredible voice actor. I mean, she featured in the DA game song Return to the Motherland, which is the Poppy Playtime Chapter 2 song. So basically, it's not her voice. It was mainly about the lines she was given were a bit too sexual, and it made me a bit uncomfortable in some areas of Poppy Playtime Chapter 2. But like I said already, Chapter 2 was mainly adding lore, and of course, the mini games and the puzzles were absolutely amazing. Probably the best that we have seen in Poppy Playtime series. I think most will agree with me that Chapter 3 is, of course, the best one. It was, of course, the most scariest one. I mean, Catnap was just absolutely menacing. Dog Day was, Mr. Light was, the Nightmare Huggy Wuggy was absolutely terrifying. It was arguably the most scariest one. Chapter 3 had, of course, the best boss fights ever. I mean, Dog Day, Mr. Light, and of course, Catnap was just brilliant. The whole was just absolutely out of this world, and the characters that it brought within it was just amazing, especially the Smiling Critters. I mean, everyone loved the Smiling Critters. And that was the game for me when the game just became absolutely just so upsetting simply because the lore it brought within was just unspeakable. The Hour of Joy, the kids being tested on, it was just absolutely messed up in so many ways. But of course, Chapter 3 is arguably the best one. And for Chapter 4, I don't really know much because simply I haven't played it, but because from what I've seen, it added the most emotions to the game. I think with the Safe Heaven, it just became a bit more emotional simply because, these kids probably won't even have a heaven simply because the prototype and the characters done so much bad things within the factory. And I felt like with Chapter 4, I've kind of noticed, like, each character that they add in had so much hype for, and then they just die in the end. Harley had so much hype for, Yarnaby had so much hype for, even Dowie, and in the end, they just all die. And all that hype was just for nothing if they just all die. I mean, all we have left is, of course, Kissy Missy, us, and Poppy, and, of course, Dog Day if he ever comes back. And that kind of proves that each character does not deserve death. They deserve freedom, but, of course, brainwashing and years without anyone just made them go crazy and mad. I mean, the main character got really lucky because within the Home Sweet Home dream, the prototype literally said on the radio, "Why weren't you in the Hour of Joy?" Again, that just kind of proves that we shouldn't really die, but at the same time we should, because of what we done was wrong. I mean, it proves that the toys are so desperate because they're literally relying on us, especially Poppy and Kissy Missy, relying on us to stop the prototype. Them relying on us, even though that they know that we did bad, kind of proves that they're so desperate to have freedom. I don't really know what Poppy's intentions are. I mean, I don't really know if she's trying to torture us, trying to torment us for what we've done, because she knows that we've done bad. But at the same time, I felt like she wants us to help her, but we're just more of like a slave to her. Weird to talk about this, but with Chapter 5, whenever it comes out, I feel like that will have the most climax ever. If that's the final chapter, it's going to be the massive showdown between us and the prototype, unless they add more characters and the factory goes even more deeper. I mean, Chapter 1 was just a factory full of toys. We just thought it was just a toy factory. And then with Chapter 2, we learned it was more of like a kind of like a visiting place for kids to go, you know, play mini games, see all the toys, etc. Chapter 3 showed us that is actually, you know, an orphanage where kids get tested on. And Chapter 4 kind of showed us it was a lab. A toy factory to a visiting place to an orphanage to a lab. I mean, they probably use the toy factory, the visiting place, and of course the orphanage to hide up what they're trying to do underground, trying to hide their dirty work. And thinking about that right now is extremely messed up. I don't know what Chapter 3 is going to be. I don't know if it's going to be the final showdown between us and the prototype, or if it's going to go even more deeper and add new characters who, of course, are going to die very easily. Chapter 3 would always be the most popular Poppy Playtime out of the entire lot, simply because of what it brought into the horror industry. Before Chapter 3, Poppy Playtime was not really that popular, and that's simply because it wasn't scary enough, and most people were actually making fun of the game. The animations within Chapter 1 and 2 were just horrible, and people made fun of it, and that was the reason why people hated Poppy Playtime. And I will admit, I was one of those people who actually did not like Poppy Playtime, and that's simply because of what the animations were just extremely weird, and I did not like it. But of course, now it grew on me, and it's now one of my favourite games out there. And as soon as Chapter 3 came around, it was extremely popular, and that's because of the Smiling Critters. The characters were just absolutely amazing. Or the CG5 song Sleep Well was just absolutely amazing. I think the last time I checked the video, it had like 150 million views, which is insane. Which is now his most viewed song ever, taken over Got No Time remake. Mob Games are not messing around this time. They need to prove themselves that they can make a horror game extremely well, and they did. Catnap is probably up there as one of the most scariest video game characters we have seen in a while. He was menacing, he was lurking in the shadows, he was absolutely terrified in every way possible, and they can prove to themselves that they can make a horror game extremely well and even make the characters very scary. And I will admit, the fan-made animations on the Smiling Critters are just absolutely horrible. They ruined the Smiling Critters for me, and I try my best to absolutely ignore it. And I will admit, some animations are actually pretty good and they're not weird whatsoever, but some of them are very weird and some fans do hate it because of it. And that just proves to people that Poppy Playtime is a weird and not a good horror game, but it is at the same time. It just ignored the weird fan base it has. And that's why I keep saying to myself that the community always ruins stuff, and it's true. Take, for example, Hell of a Boss. People do not like the show or hate it simply because the community sexualized the characters. But when I watched it, it was a gruesome comedy show, and I actually kind of enjoyed it. Going back to Poppy Playtime, people ruined the game simply because the community is extremely weird. And I hate to admit it, I've seen the Rule 34 stuff on the Smiling Critters and Poppy Playtime. It is absolutely vile and disgusting. Shame on you, whoever you are out there making this stuff, because you are ruining a perfectly normal horror game for people who actually enjoy it, simply because of your own pleasure. And that's why I feel like some people actually hate Poppy Playtime. It's not our fault, it's not the fans' fault, it's not Mob Games' fault, it's the weird ass community who does that stuff. And for the people who don't play the game or hate it, give it a chance. Play the game, or just watch someone play it. You realise it's actually not that bad of a game, it's just an absolute magical horror ride thrill, full of high tension every step you take. And to Mob Games, thank you so much for breaking me as a person, but to make an absolute amazing horror game that I absolutely love to the bottom of my heart. And to you guys, thank you so much for the insane support throughout the Poppy Playtime series. You guys are absolutely amazing, and I have no words to describe how grateful I am. Thank you so much for watching this long-ass video, and I'll see you all in the next one.